7 reasons of the generation. There we go. 7 reasons our generation has given up on the church. Do it. All right, there we go. Okay. Hello, everybody. Good evening. Well, and welcome to the Great Friday at the Faith Place. Give some claps. Give some claps. We got our youth panelists up here tonight. They're going to give us talk on the 7 reasons our generation has given up on the church. All right. I'm going to introduce each panelist tonight. We got the moderator, Clarice Goodman. We got Michaela Hudson, Jennifer Fair, Karen Odom, and Victoria Giles. And this is our panelists for tonight. They're going to come up here and they're going to give us our youth talk tonight on why the youth generation has given up on the church. So y'all come on in, have a seat, enjoy. How do y'all want to do this?
All right, we can take over now?
Y'all want to take over?
Okay.
Go ahead.
Sounds good to me. Thank you everybody for being here to listen to our discussion. You could have been anywhere else, but you decided to be here. Yeah. And we appreciate that. For everybody joining us online, we appreciate you because, again, you could be surfing the web on like YouTube or Facebook or, Instagram and stuff. But you're watching us, and again, we appreciate that. So we talked about a lot of different things, 7 reasons why young people have given up on church. I'll start by just giving the overall reasons, and then we kind of will go from there and break down the details. So 1 is judgment, 2 is messages, and there were a lot of different factors kind of went into that we'll talk about. No safe spaces, hypocrisy. I know, right? Virtual worship. I guess generational gaps with older youth leaders, and then just an overall old school mentality. As I said, messages was a big one, so we will jump into that. One big thing was catered messages. I guess, well, I'll start by saying someone mentioned that older preachers typically kind of preach to the older generation. So I will open it up to my fellow panelists if anybody would like to jump in and just give their feedback on that.
I can start. Thank you, Pastor Razor and the Faith Place for having us. We greatly appreciate this opportunity to better our church. As an educator and a parent, I've realized that a lot of young people, when they come to church, they are bored because they don't understand what the pastor is talking about. There are not a lot of activities for young people, so they feel forced. And it's very similar to if you're in a room where people are speaking a foreign language. You don't understand what's happening. You feel lost, you feel forgotten about, and that's a lot of times how the youth have expressed it. They feel that the pastor is talking over their head. They don't understand what's happening. They don't know about these stories that are in the Bible. So we're here just to let you all know what we've gathered that the youth have talked about as to why they don't really want to come to church. But we're also here to come to a resolution. If the youth are feeling like when the pastor is speaking or they're in Bible study, they don't understand what's happening, we have to figure out a way to ensure that the youth understand, because Jesus encouraged us to suffer the little children. He didn't forget about them. So we can't forget about them either. And I strongly encourage parents to put their children in Sunday school. That's where I learned about the Bible. My teacher met me where I was. I can remember being in kindergarten and being in Sunday school. The lesson was tailored to meet me at 5 years old. And I built on understanding about Christ and the Trinity and the purpose of the church by going to Sunday school. So it's imperative that we remember that those that offer Sunday school and children's church, that we put our children there, because that's where they learn about Christ.
So I'm gonna add another angle to that. So even in that though, you can have a young teen, let's say his parents didn't grow up in church, or let's say he grew up with a different type of religious or spiritual background, and he's getting interested in or getting curious about wanting to go to church, and he brings himself to church, right? So when he's going there, he's not going to be able to understand or be able to wrap his head around all of the different stories. And it's not just about the Bible itself, but it's also about the application, right? When they're preaching and they're giving real world lessons and real world stories, it's hard for a 16-year-old who is growing up and whatever his background and whatever his household looks like and whatever his environment is when he goes back home, like, I hear you preaching, I hear what you're saying, but how does that affect me in my real life? Like, how am I supposed to manage all of these other influences that I am seeing on a day-to-day basis? How am I supposed to manage this when I'm around my friends and they're not living like this? How am I supposed to manage my neighborhood when my family is not moving like this? How am I supposed to manage Facebook, social media, Instagram? Like, how am I supposed to manage all of this? And your pastor, who is 65, 70 years old, ain't on Instagram. He doesn't know the battles, right? Like, everybody's experience is different. So your 70-year-old pastor is not going to relate to social media the way I'm relating to social media. Okay, yeah, they may have had gangs back then, but even in the gangs, even when I was younger, when I grew up and they had gangs, there were still rules and regulations. Now it's like a free-for-all, right? So where your pastor was and experienced gangs, it's a slightly different situation that some of these kids are now experiencing because there's different rules in that. So it's not just about going to Sunday school, like, because if you didn't grow up in church, right, you don't have that. So it's like messages also have to speak to them so they can learn real-world application, right? Because I can sit here and you can tell me a story about church all day, but it's no different to some than the stories they read in the book at school. Right. It's just a story. How does that help me in my life?
Yeah, and I can attest to growing up in Sunday school, that's how we were taught. We were taught how to apply the Word of God to our lives. It was really like a small group. You know, you would start off with the lesson, and even if you look at a Sunday school book, the questions that are prompted are geared towards, after you read this lesson, how are you going to apply this? If the teacher follows the Sunday school book, application is there. And even when we're talking about this young person, this theoretical person, you know, small Sunday school is catered from 0 to 100 years old. That's why you have small groups. So I would encourage any church that has it to encourage your members to come, because some people can come to Christ at 85, 15, 29. As a church, we need to have something to offer them where they are. And I know Sunday school was very important to me because it was youth that were like me, that understood at my level, and we could share out, and it was a safe place to do so. And I felt like I grew in Christ because I felt like it wasn't just me. If it was 5 people there, I was there with somebody who could relate to my struggles. And then you had a teacher there to say, well, look, this is my experience. You all are 15, 16, and I may be 35. I've experienced that. This may help you along the way.
Right. And I think the difference is, though, right? So every church is different. And so, like, I grew up in the church, right? And so my grandmother was a Sunday school teacher and things like that. Love my grandma, right? Respected my grandmother, right? However, even though I was in Sunday school with kids my age, I didn't share because I wasn't the traditional churchgoer, right? Like, I was the rebellious kid. I hated skirts. Why I gotta wear skirts every day? Like, who has to do, like, why? Right? And it's just like all of these rules that I didn't go along with. So I was always looked at like, she's that one, right? So I'm not going to share my thoughts. I'm not going to ask my questions. I'm not going to do that because I can already feel that side eye, right?
That judgment.
Right. You know what I mean? Like, I was the one that had to make to go, I had to go Sunday, Wednesday, Friday, like, they needed me in church all the time, right? And so it's one of those things, like, your age group, it's great, but again, you still need your Sunday school teachers to kind of go out in the world a little bit so they know what we're really dealing with, right?
So I feel like I heard Michaela say something over here, if you want to add. Just want to make sure we get,
when she said I was there Friday, Tuesday, Sunday, I said, I understand. Thanks. Well, since we on me, I could throw my little how I feel in. I feel like when it comes to messages with older pastors preaching, like everybody said, They just kind of don't know how to gear it towards the youth just so we could listen. And it's not like we're not understanding what you're saying. It's just like those big, I'm telling you, from me and the kids' point, those big words that you going back and forth, and if we don't know the background between it, it's just like in one ear and in one out the other. And there's been times I've been sitting there and Pastor has said, keep it 100, and I'm like, oh. I look up like, what? And then I'm like, okay, well, now I'm listening now. So I feel like if older pastors just even add some of the younger lingo or kind of like compare to a story that happens in the Bible and maybe compare it to a real life situation just to get those youth eyes, to get those ears to listen, it'll be a lot better.
Great point.
I agree with that completely. So definitely with Pastor, like I come for the word, but again, like you said, it has to be broken down to me in a way that I can apply it to like everyday life. I feel like a lot of old preachers, they throw out Bible verses, and that's fine. It's great that you know the Bible, but I feel like if I don't know what you're talking about, then that message is not coming across clearly.
Right.
So
And they be too aggressive. Like all the time, like God said this, God said that. Like no, take it easy, relax. Like we listening, but it don't take all of that like to draw us in. Like be a little bit more mild with us. You know, y'all get what I'm saying.
right, yeah.
And I think it's important too, where the Bible talks about rightly dividing the word of God. And that's important for administration, the church, the pastor. You're not rightly dividing it if I don't understand. If I'm a teacher, if I'm teaching fractions and nobody in the room gets it, whose fault is it? Mine.
That's right.
So it's important that pastors self-evaluate, look in the crowd and see, do people get it? Is it going over their head? Figure out a way to check and balance to ensure that nobody is left behind. Because Jesus doesn't want anybody to be left behind. That's right. So we have to take on that same mentality.
Yeah, I think, and that's a good point, because I think that kind of plays into the holier than thou identity that some pastors and some clergymen have, is that they are beyond reproach, right? That, oh, well, I'm the pastor, so I know best. And it's like, yeah, but no. And that's everybody is not beyond growth and beyond learning, right? And it's not that you don't know the word. It's not that somebody's challenging you and telling you don't know the word, but you may not be able to reach everybody, and you have to be able to look at yourself and like, okay, what can I do better? What can I work on? Where am I at? And actually have conversations with your youth. Like, don't send brother and sister such and such to go have the conversation and bring it back to you. No, go in fellowship with your youth and actually have real day-to-day conversations, check in. And like some of these metrics, they're so huge, and I don't want to have to make an appointment with my pastor and my associate pastor, and then it's 3 months. Like what I needed you to pray for me for 3 months ago, I mean, we passed that at this point.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah.
So, as I mentioned, we did like break it down to a lot of different things, and I think we covered a lot of them as far as difficult messages and like them being very intimidating when they, speaking to us. Someone mentioned wanting to know more history, and just I guess using the Bible to become closer to our ancestry. I'm not sure who it was. I apologize.
That was me.
Yeah, if you wanted to talk a little more about that.
So basically, within the last few years, I think a lot of people have been hearing about how Black folks are getting woke, right? Which is great, right? Hands down, that is a beautiful thing. But a lot of people are starting to disassociate themselves from Christianity because a lot of us may think that Christianity was only introduced to us by slavery. And so that is a natural turnoff. Like, why do I want to associate myself with something that was so heart-wrenching, so horrible for us, right? And not understanding that, no, first of all, we were here before slavery. Number two, that there were some of us that was practicing Christianity prior to coming over here. And so not understanding that, you have literally lost a lot of people just off them being ignorant to that fact. And so if we can preach a holistic ancestry and how Christianity came to be and where we practice and things like that, I think that would close the gap for a lot of us. And they wouldn't be so turned off to Christianity, because that's a lot of people, what people say, like, why y'all preaching to this white man, this white God, and things like that. And you know, they use this to keep us enslaved. It's just like, that's actually not what happened. But, you know what I mean? But the more you know, the more free you become. And I think that would bring a lot of people back into the church.
I agree.
Can I say, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So I think that it's important that the church not only offer traditional church service and choir singing, you have to offer programs. That's where children are educated. If you go into different zip codes, children learn about themselves not only at home and at church, they see themselves in books and at the YMCA and at the theater. And we are relying on a system that has not been kind to us to educate our children.
Right.
And the church has to be more than just Sunday morning service,
Talk
Wednesday
about
Bible study,
Talk about
and
it.
Tuesday choir rehearsal. I am a parent, and I had to put my child in parochial school to ensure that he got quality education. And those people don't look like him. So I had to fill in the gap. Summers, I was his teacher. I had to teach him about who he was because he wasn't going to learn it anywhere else. So I think it's important that pastors realize that it's our duty as a church to let our people know who they are. Because when you know who you are, you're not willing to take some things.
Right.
When you know that you're related to a king, it's certain things you're not going to allow. So I think it's important that we not only offer sermons, but we have to teach our children, our young people, who they are in Christ, their place in this world, and then we will see better results. And we just can't rely on church only for church service. It has to be programs offered. We can't rely on the world system because God created a kingdom for us. We're supposed to operate and beat to a different drum. We shouldn't be relying on public assistance and public education. They're not going to help us. And pastors may not like it, but that's how we're going to see a different result.
I want to add in, to piggyback off, she said, I believe pastors need to be more engaged with their youth. I remember when I was younger, and I'd be acting out in school, I'd be coming back with bad grades, and my mom would come back and tell pastor, and he'll be like, come take me in this office. I know y'all know the old church with the old office in the back. I go in the office, and it'd be a belt hanging back up there, and he'll just point to the belt. And I'd be like, okay. And so as I'm at school, I had that in the back of my head, like, okay, I have to do better. I have to fix this, or my pastor gonna have a problem with it. Not only my pastor, but my mama gonna have a problem with it. Not only my mama, but my youth leader gonna have a problem with it. So I just feel like they need to be a little bit more engaged with the kids outside of church in their personal lives as well.
Yeah, and one last thing for me, I think you spoke to the holistic approach. I think it's very important that we're not just getting the Bible, but also understanding that we need to be, the ultimate goal is to get to heaven, but as we're here right now, we need to be engaged and be well, which is, I think is important, and I appreciate Pastor for providing that financial stability programming. Like you said, having programs for people, because yeah, we want to be like Christians, we want to be great people, but we want to live well, we want to be financially stable. We want to be healthy.
Preaching prosperity, you also have to put in
exactly.
the work.
Right, you got to take care of your body, take care of your mind, be mentally well, spiritually well, physically well, all of that. And then with identity as well, I think it's important to tell the truth about where we stood in the Bible as well.
Yeah.
Talk about it.
They want to talk about us being slaves our whole lives and things like that, but that's not the truth. And I feel like, again, we hear the Bible, we hear these things, but we need to know where we stood because that's our identity. And we need to know where we came from if we're going to figure out where we're going.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's
you know,
There you go, girl.
yeah,
Go ahead.
look, don't. We're going to move on to the next topic.
One thing
Yeah,
real
go ahead.
quick. When you were talking, Clarice, it made me think of affinity. You felt affiliated with that church, and that's why you felt committed to doing something positive. And I feel like, Michaela, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
When you feel affiliated with something, you don't want to bring shame to it. And you have to make you feel like they are a part of your ministry. I'm a part of different organizations. When I know I don't look right going outside, I don't put on those clothes so people will know and that I can be represented because I know I'm not at my best. So it's important that you feel affiliated with the ministry because then they will conduct themselves a certain way in school settings with their friends because they don't want to bring shame to their church.
I would like to say also, when we talked about how pastors should be more involved in the youth life, I feel like that they also should be mindful of where they were when they were our age. Yeah. Because I've dealt with that a lot. A lot of people, so when you gonna get married, or what you doing at this right now? Like, you're not at school, blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, what were you doing when you were my age? Like, come on now, like, let me remind you. I know you probably, a little older, but let me just let you know, like, because, that it's really not cool. It make you feel like I'm just gonna back off. I'm not gonna come back around because you judging me. Like, I can't do no wrong. I can't do no wrong. I can't say anything without you sizing me up and just like, yeah. So I just feel like be mindful of where you were when you were our age, and just work with us, like, because we're not backing away. We're not backing from the church. Like, we want to learn more. We want to have a relationship with God, but it's just like, meet us, help us. That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to help us win our soul over. So just just be cool and just, you feel me, take it easy, because like I say, like they be too aggressive and I don't like that. Like, handle me with care, because I'm easy to like just shut off and just go in my own little corner and you'll never hear from me again. And then you wondering like, well, what happened to her? Well, exactly. So I just felt the need to say that.
Oh, yeah.
I think that goes with like the wholeness approach. Like, you never know what somebody is going through, right? And it's like they're coming to church for something, right? And the last thing you want to do is turn somebody away, because you don't know, they might go home and hang themselves. And you were the straw that broke the camel's back. Like, you never know what somebody is going through. And it's just like, we already have to deal with the world itself. We already have to deal with the temptation. The last thing you want to do is come to what you think is a safe space only to be shunned again. And then you're like, well, why are you not coming back? To who? Right. You see what I'm saying? Like, if this is supposed to be a safe place, if this is supposed to be the church of God, and it's just like, but you're not acting very godly. And it's horrible. Like, when you look on Facebook and you see some of the nastiest messages, and then you go to their page and it says Christian on it, you be like, it makes you turn like, why is the nastiest people claiming to be Christian? Like,
Claiming.
It's just like, stop it. It's just like, before you open your mouth, just take a moment. Just take a moment.
I do want to invite the people at home. Are we inviting the people here? I don't know if y'all got something to say. Okay, we can do that too. But the people at home, I want to make sure we are engaging people in the conversation. For the people at home, you can call us at 312-798-9352. You can call that number. You'll be on speaker. Everybody can hear your question or your feedback, and we can actively engage with you in that conversation. Again, it is 312-798-9352. I think this
Well, hold on. I got a few questions.
Well, step right up to the
I got like 40 questions, but I'm gonna ask 3 at a time.
40 questions.
So y'all kind of touch base on a few of these questions I got written down, but
I just want to know why you're not on the panel.
Yeah, I know.
Right.
But so I mean, like, I'm gonna give you a scenario. Like, when I was younger, I was a little boy, 12, 13 years old, and I remember when I first started going to church, and I used to, go to church on Sundays and everything. But when I leave and come home, and my friends, they see me with my tie on, they get to talking about me, and I'm one of the popular kids in the neighborhood, so I got to deal with this and the rest of the Sunday or whatever. So I go home and everything. But once I go outside, and I got to hear that, oh, you a little deacon, or you be praying, or you be going to church catching the Holy Ghost, stuff like that. You know, and you know, me having a reputation, I got to be like, man, y'all like leave me alone, hush up, while I try to find myself being this way one day, then this way the next. So I just want to ask, do you think your friends have influence on your decision on attending church?
Yes.
Absolutely.
I'm a parent, and I feel like those children my son go to school with have more influence over him than I do. There are times that I felt that way. But I'm reminded of the scripture where I'm planting the seed. Somebody's going to come and water it, and I expect God to provide the increase. I don't expect him. Some children do come to Christ at 7 years old. Some come at 18. I'm patient, and I know what God has promised me. So I don't just look at what he's doing right now. I remind him of the right thing. I demonstrate it at home. He knows my expectations, but I trust the promises of God, regardless of what he's doing and what the friends. And I remind him who he is. Son, we represent God. We don't do this at home. And I tell him, God has given you free will. When you make those decisions, you are old enough now to understand, and God's going to hold you accountable. And it's not to scare him, but to get him to understand reality. Yeah. Because children die at 12, 8, especially in our city. So I take a realistic approach. My child is 14 years old. He'll be turning 15 this summer. You are a young man. What you do, God is watching. He got a tape recorder, don't never go off. And you may forget, but God didn't. And I believe those are seeds that I planted him, and eventually I will see the fruit of that. But I don't just expect him to just change overnight. I didn't do that. Yeah. You know?
I think, I'm sorry. No. Thank you. Sorry. I think my friends, I don't think they influence me, but I would say I'm very particular about the people I hang around. And so when I tell people I'm going to church, they respect that. Good. Like there was no like joke and things like that. I tell people now, like if I go out on Saturday night, I gotta go to church in the morning, y'all. I ain't about to be out with y'all till 4 o'clock in the morning like I used to be. But you know, I think
and that's real.
That's real. But I think the older I got, when I said I think that I influenced them a little more. Good. Because I think when I'm saying like I'm going to church, like I don't have to say it. I think people sometimes know. I think just in the way you carry yourself, I think like people see when you've been blessed. And so if I say I'm going to church, they're like, oh, yeah. And like a lot of my friends be like, you know, I need to get back to church. They ain't did it yet. But they like, I need to get back to church. Like I need to, you know, I like that. I want to like, they probably like, I can't go there yet, but like I want to listen to a service or something like that. And I encourage that. So again, for me, it's like I am who I am, like I'm not gonna front it, but I was just very particular about the people I hung around. And so yeah, they influenced me, but I think to some extent I did more influencing than them.
And then I think like you just have to even, yes, we're in church and yes, we're talking about church, but you also just have to teach children how to stand firm in whatever it is that they believe, right? You are an individual. You don't allow somebody else's opinions, commentary to make you sidestep, right? And so like I have children and I tell my daughter quick, I'm like, I don't really rock with your friend. I don't like how she always, you know, like I have opinions, right? And so like, again, I grew up in a church and may have prayed at home, like I'm not really going back to church, right? But I have a friend, she there every Sunday, she's singing a choir, and sometimes I go, sometimes I don't, right? And she understands the journey and the path that I'm struggling with, and it doesn't take away from her journey. Right. She's at church faithfully. Yeah. And me and her, we still have conversations, but that doesn't make my journey any different. It doesn't make hers. It doesn't take anything away from anybody. You have to teach your children, like, kids are gonna tease you regardless of what you do anyway. So don't change what you're doing to suit them. And honestly, they may wanna come, because when I was growing up, again, I was in church every day. So if my friends wanted to spend the night, they would ask, well, what day is it, Tori? Because my mama said, anybody that spend the night over here, you're going to church. In the morning. So, and then my friends, like, they just thought my family was a bomb, and I'm just like, why y'all want to go to church? Yeah. Like, and so it's just like, when some of those kids, they may just be jealous because your family seems a little bit more structured and intact. Kids seek structure. So they may be making fun of you, but deep down, invite those kids, like, you want to come with me? You know what I mean? And then sometimes they may wind up having more fun depending on what church it is, because some ain't as fun as others, right? They don't have those programs that she was referring to, but that's why we're having this conversation, right? Because some is just like, they in church with the grown folks. They just sitting there, mama telling you don't fall asleep, don't slouch. It's just like, well, what am I supposed to be doing in here? Right? So, but if you do have those programs, those 13-year-old kids may want to join in and come with, bring some of these kids, because they don't have adults in their life that's looking out for them, right? So your friend's son who ain't never been to church, come to church with me. Come to church on Wednesday night. Come to church on Friday night. You know what I mean? Do those things, and that might stop some of that.
Can I say something that's a little bit controversial, Pastor Razor? I don't want to blow up the internet.
Okay, here we go. Let's go for it.
But I think the word bullying is overused. And I'm a parent, I'm an educator. My child comes from a home where he was teased. It made him stronger. I think when you, I don't want anybody to hurt my child, but I know I have to prepare him for the streets and school. He's gonna encounter people that don't love him. So I cannot let you be a crybaby and your feelings always. And the only way you learn, and Pastor Razor teased me growing up. And you need that cultivates you. It builds character. It's okay if you fall, somebody tease you. And I would tell my son, you got to get a better joke than your auntie. You don't want everybody laughing at you. And that helps when you're encountering people, because you're a deacon at church. And, my son got quick comebacks because he grew up in a household in the church that we allowed that in a safe way, okay? For you internet people who are, about bullying.
Listen, I told somebody, I was like, you can't talk about me because the family I grew up in, I got thick skin over here. Like, you can't say nothing about me because I ain't heard it all. It doesn't bother you, right? Yeah. So when you're cloaked in the armor of God as well, on top of that, it's just like nothing can touch you at this point.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, whatever you do, whatever you say, whatever you got for me, it doesn't move me. I am secure in who I am and what I bring. So, to your point, like, I don't know how that fit, but I get where you're going.
It's okay. Teasing is okay sometimes.
Okay.
We got one more.
I just wanted to, piggyback off the point we was talking about. I never felt like I was influenced. Like Clarice said, I more felt like I was the influencer. Because all my friends know if you coming over to spend the night, just have your church clothes ready for Sunday morning, because my mama not missing it, I'm not missing it. We ain't staying here. We going to church and we going to sit there and listen to Pastor preach. It didn't matter. Even around my friends, I can count on my hands and my toes how many events I missed to come to church. And I might have been mad looking back at it, but I kind of thank my mama now for that. It kind of sounds bitter saying it, but I kind of thank her for that, because it was a lot of times I'm like, oh yeah, I can't go to that because I'm going to this church event. Then when I got to the church event, I'm like, oh hey, I kind of like coming to this church event tonight. And I would always have a friend with me, and that friend would go back like, hey, I kind of like this. So it was, I never felt like I was influenced, but I can kind of see where kids can be influenced now in this society.
Yeah. You had another question?
She got a question.
I'm going to be short and sweet, because I am one of the panelists is my best friend. And I just want to speak on that there are plenty of ways that kids can have an influence. She's been one of my best friends since I was like 14. And it's her and it's my brother. And they are my go-to. They are my go-between for me when I need prayer. They're my go-to, my in-between when I need to have that conversation with God. And they both tell me, look, you don't have to talk to him how I talk to him. You don't have to use the words because you don't use them. Just say them from your heart and he will hear them. Yeah. So the influence that Jennifer has on me, it has not only rubbed off on, because like my family, we're more relationship versus religion. So we not here, we're not in here Sunday and stuff like that. But I know to respect her schedules. I know to respect her time. But also, she's one of my go-to. I only have two. I actually went to an event recently, which is kind of crazy that we're here because I went to an event and it was very, I told her, I think I said it was very churchy or something. I said it made me feel uncomfortable. I felt like this. And she said, come to this event, you know? And then she said, I'm doing this, come to this. And when I heard youth, I was like, you know, I'm old, I'm 30, like I'm not part of the youth. But now I feel like it's speaking to me too. So it's like, it's ways to reach the youth outside of, because even my daughter, when she has questions about it, she'll be like, oh, can I ask like twin, can I ask my uncle? I want to know this, I want to know why. And if I don't have the answers, I send them to her. So you can it can be positive, very, very, very positive influences, because that's what she's been on me. And it can be, you know, some of that little teasing.
I kind of have a question for the panel. I am a parent, and all of my children are grown. And I remember that they all came up in the church. They were in church sometimes from 8, got home at 12 at night, because we were on the public transportation. I took them to everything. Every out service we had to go to, they had to go. Now, they grew up. They became young adults. They became over the age of 18. Because see, when they were younger in my home, they didn't have a choice. Right. Because if you in my house, we going to church. So we at a point now with our young people that are, I'm gonna call them teen adults. They call their adults. And whether they're 18 to, I'm gonna say over 18. Now, they're at a point, they got to a point in their lives where they were making their own decisions. And I was in the church, in my same church, and I watched, we talked about the pastor, let's talk about the whole congregation. Because sometimes we are very judgmental. Our young people come into church because we used to come into church, and even with there's a way we talk to young people. You can talk to them in love, and then they will understand you better. But if you talking to them in a negative tone, or if you looking them up and down and full in judgment on them, you will turn them away. Because I saw young people, including some of my own, listening to people that they've been up under and in the ministry, the evangelists and whomever it is in the church, some people, the lay members that are in the church, they kind of turn them away. Then you wonder why, after a little while, they disappear. You don't see them anymore. You know, sometimes they go to other churches, but they want to be comfortable, and they need us to understand them. And I'm speaking as a parent because I had 5 daughters and 1 son. And they know about Christ. Because every man got to work out his own. We can only instill in them, we can bring them to church, we can do those things. But I wanted to hear from the young people tonight about what it is that makes you turn away. What is making you don't want to come back to church? Or, you know, if we can get that open, we can pull a lot of more young people, young adults back into the church. Because we have been there. And we all know, I'm listening to everybody, all of you, all this panel, you all came up under God. You all know the Lord. But what about that person that's out here in the dark? They may have been introduced to Christ one time in their life, but they walked away. How do we get them back?
Can I answer that for you?
You sure can.
Because I'm going to tell you this. When I grew up in church just like everybody else. Pastor Razor, he helped groom me, right? I couldn't wait to go away to college because I said I ain't got to go to church no more. And my mother was trying to get me to stay at home. I said to myself, because I'm on my own schedule. I want to do what I want to do. She would call me, did you find a church? Did you find a church? Because it was still required, right? She paying the tuition. I got to do what she say. I'm like, me and my friends hanging out. The first thing I wanted to do was get away from church. But I'm going to tell you from a personal experience, When you experience a dark moment where you're afraid or your life is at stake, those seeds that were planted in you, you will remember when you heard those saints saying the blood of Jesus, because you know it's real then. And I'm going to tell you, you have to be put in a point where your faith is tried, where you get to know that God is real yourself. Because all other times I was just doing it like a robot. I was required to go to church. But God allowed me, and the Bible says all things work together for your good. He allowed me to be in tough situations where I had to call on him to ensure that I knew he was real. And everything that my mother had instilled in me, those seeds that were planted, they actually began to grow. And I said to myself, I got to go to church on Sunday.
Yeah.
Because I was put in a situation that I had to seek God for myself. So I'm going to encourage you as a parent, trust the seeds that were planted. Some flowers bloom later.
So
You know, some flowers bloom later, and I know I'm a living testimony that I wanted to stray away from it. I did. But it was like an anchor in me that drew me back to Christ. God know how to, he created us, he know how to reach us.
So my story is going to be slightly different. I'm still trying to find my way back to the church itself. Do I still believe in God? Absolutely. Do I still pray? Absolutely. Have I found my way back to a home? Absolutely not. And so I'm going to tell people to be, and I promise, and I'm going to tell y'all some real stories real fast. Be mindful of what you say. A lot of older, especially older black churches and a lot of older people are used to the children should be seen and not heard. And you get so used to that you forget they standing there and y'all run y'all mouths. And you don't realize that those kids are hearing everything that you say. I've been in church all my life and I heard the nastiness that these grown people were saying. And I'm just like, if you saying this and I'm seeing y'all in my house and y'all all kikiing, but then I'm hearing you say this, I shouldn't know the business of grown people, right? Let me tell you a story real quick. My sister was murdered in Chicago when I was 15 years old. And it's not just inside the church, right? We went to convocations, we went to everything. So I know all these people. I'm at a hairdresser getting my hair done, not on a Sunday, random Saturday. And I heard somebody that went to my church and said, it should have been me. Not knowing I was there. And you want me to go back to this church? I'm going to think not. Then, let me tell you about another story. And just being in different churches and watching grown men and older men looking at these young girls and thinking we don't see it and we don't feel it. But there's no accountability. But you want me to feel safe. You want me to come back. I'm going to think not. I can pray at home. I can agree with my friends who worship God. I don't need one to agree to be here. I can do this on my own. But you want me to feel safe and come back to the church, but I haven't seen anything different. I visited different ones and I still see the same thing. So until I feel something different, I'm going to continue to do it my way. Because my thing is, again, like she said, relationship. I'm going to have to stand there by myself. Me plus this church ain't going to be standing there. So, and I feel like God knows my heart. He knows the things that I've been through. And it's not him that I'm running from. It's the people that you send down here that you keep telling me is your home. I'm sorry. Like, you're going to have to help me. So when I'm praying, I'm just like, well, until you guide me to find me a church, I'm going to do it this way. And I feel like God is all knowing. He knows. So until you guide me into that place, like I found a church and it was working out for a while. No issues, but I wound up moving. It was a little too far. So now, I'm back in that stage. And like I said, my friend, she go to church every Sunday. Her church is a little too big for my taste. I do like to know the people I'm communing with. So again, until I find that safe space, but it's not just about Sunday school. It ain't just about the choir singing. It's just like, I need to feel comfortable. I have children. I know what some of these people are like. I'm not going to put my child in the same situation that I was in. If I can't feel safe, I'm not putting my children in that place. I'm not doing that to them. I don't want to give them something else to have to heal from.
Yeah, that's real talk.
Yeah, thank you guys for sharing. I do want to make sure we get to this last question. I do want to move on because you touched on a lot of stuff that we're going to get to. I want to make sure we try to get in as much as possible. Denise?
So to piggyback off what Sister Fair said. Well, for me, when I was a young adult, and the reason I left church, it was the desire, the temptation of everything to be grown. We want to be grown so bad. Ain't nobody gonna make me go to church. I'm not going. I ain't gotta wear a skirt. I'm not doing that. I ain't gotta get up early. I can stay out all night Saturday and party and don't have to get up on Sunday. I ain't doing it. So the thing that made me not come back, like took me away from church, I can do what I want to do.
Yeah.
You know, we say that sentence, the baddest statement in the world, the worst statement. I'm grown.
Yeah.
I'm grown, so I can do what I want to do. So that made me go away. But then my mom met Pastor Razor, and she made me go to church as a grown woman. And I'm gonna be transparent because there's kids in the room. I'm gonna be open. I used to go to church and I used to be like, but I've been out drinking all night. I just don't feel right. I don't care. You going.
Yeah.
I'm like, but I don't feel right. I don't care. And I'm like, but you gonna make me, I'm grown. Girl, if you don't get dressed. And the thing that and that's what make a lot of us leave the church, like I'm dealing with that with my kids. They're grown. But if you come to my house on Saturday, I bet you're going to church. If I check your phone and you're in the area, I'm texting you, you better get to church. I don't care how old you are, because my mama made me do it. Because at the end of the day, like Karen said, you will know. Like they were raised in a church as a little kid, you will feel bad. Some stuff you do when you out in the street, even when I was grown, I felt bad. Like I didn't want to come to church. Even though she made, I'm like, you really gonna make me do this? So after a while, guess what it did? I stopped going out on Saturday drinking. I stopped going out on Saturday, because she gonna make me go. So why go and be a fool up in church and you've been out partying? And they're gonna come back, and your kids gonna come back at their own time. Ain't nothing you can say. All you can do is continue to pray for them.
Yep.
Continue to pray for them. That's all my mom did. Her and my grandma. You could pray for them and pray that they come back, and Lord, cover them in your blood. Because at the end of the day, they going to use that statement, I'm grown. I'm going to do what I want to do. So all you can do is just hope, pray for the best.
Yep,
you know,
that's
Lord, keep them. Until their mind get right. Because once we get out there in the street with that grown statement, the devil uses us in every way possible. So now they out in the street doing the fool. You know, we out in the street doing the fool because we grown, right? So in their own time, they going to come back. But in the meantime, we just got to pray. You pray for mine, I pray for yours, because they grown.
That's it.
We can't literally beat them and make them come. You know, I was just one of the ones, my mom, she real stern with her words. You know, so I just said that we get to that point and we use that statement that we're grown. So that carries kind of a little weight, but it doesn't really mean nothing. But, you know, we say that. And that's where a lot of us lose our way. Yeah. When we get 18, we say we're grown. And then we just leave the church because no one's making us, you know. So, and all we can do is just pray that they come back. And we hope it's in time that they're walking in and not being carried in. And that's the statement. And I'm just glad that my mom made me walk in instead of me being pushed into the church. And that's all we can do at this point. Once they get grown, pray for them and hope they come back. And the seeds that was planted, it pop in their head. Because let me tell you something, drinking on Saturday night and coming to church on Sunday was not a good look. So some had to stop. and after a while, you just have to stop because you feel bad. You feel like a fool. You know what I'm saying? My mama doing this, and then I'm going to go up in there and embarrass her. You know, so all those things it'll kick in. It just and some take a little bit longer than others. That's all.
Yeah, you go ahead.
You know, the old church, I didn't grow up in the church. My mom sent us to Sunday school, and I saw her as an adult. I saw her pray when she had difficult times. But I did not grow up in church, so I didn't have those experiences that a lot of people have with being in church on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and that kind of stuff. Okay? I didn't have that type of experience. But my experience came because I saw my mom pray. I saw her pray, right? When she got into hard time, when she had to take care of her health failing mother, okay, and her siblings were not available on the days that she really needed them, like my brother's graduation or my graduation, and she needed her siblings to take responsibility of their mom, okay, everybody's mom, right? They were not available, but she prayed and asked God to give her the strength, and that she would not have to ask them anymore, you know. But my experience with being saved came from my own testimony. And that's what I believe is going to bring people back into the church. The real testimonies. I mean, you could tell lies. You could, testify and test a lie. But the real testimonies of people that's gone through real experiences in life, and then give that testimony, because you can feel a real testimony. You can feel it. It goes from my heart to your heart, okay? And my experience was when I would spend all my money on that last drop of drugs, okay? It wasn't marijuana neither, okay? And I didn't have no more money, and I'm dreaming about the drugs when I go to sleep. And I got on my knees that night. I didn't have no more money, but I got on my knees that night. And I said, God, I'm going to pray all night long. I'm going to stay on my knees. Because I don't have the experience that other people have. Yeah. But I knew about prayer, okay? And I prayed all night long. I got on my, and I talked to God for real. I mean, I don't know how to, oh Lord, I didn't know that then. I didn't know, I just knew what I knew. I just knew how to get on my knees and ask God for help. Because my soul was in need of some real help, okay? I knew I had a problem. I had 2 children at the time. When I cussed at my own child, I called them something. I don't cuss at my children. I don't cuss. Those are words I do not use, okay? So when I saw myself cussing, I knew I had a problem. I don't cuss at my children. You know, they're precious. Okay, but I saw that I had a problem when I cussed at one of them. And I don't know what they did. It was probably nothing. I don't know what it was. But I knew that I needed to talk to God. And God came to my rescue. You know, I think that's when I got saved, that night. Not in no church, but that night on my knees. But I did find me a real church. And I learned those big words and the little ones. And I learned those experiences and those Bible verses. And I thank God for them because they brought me through some more stuff, okay? Those testimonies and those scriptures have brought me through a lot of stuff in my life. So I just thank God for it.
Man.
I would agree with that. I kind of grew up the same way. We were in church on Sunday. We wasn't all day. It was just Sunday. It wasn't like all through the week. But I learned to pray like seeing my mom pray. And mainly, I grew up praying like at night. That was the thing, but it became a routine. I wasn't really like praying how I should have been. I wasn't really talking to God. I was just reciting something. And so I had to learn as I got older, like, you don't have to pray when you need something. You don't have to pray when you're like struggling. You can wake up and pray and just be happy and just thank God, things like that. So again, I had to learn that from my mama. I mean, again, we went to church, but I mean, I was young and I wasn't really paying attention. So, yeah, a lot of that I had to learn from my mama. So,
I wanted to just piggyback really fast off of what Karen said. I was like, church, every Sunday, every Tuesday, we have a Bible study. So once I was at school, I'm like, okay, well, I know I didn't have a chance to relax. I know that because my mom was going to be like, yeah, you got a church. Everybody's going to be like, you got a church. But I kind of felt where, okay, I got me a little breathing era. And I feel as though, like she said, you have to go through something in order for you really to be like, okay, let me get it back together. Let me draw back to point A where this is where I need to be. I found me a church home, even though it wasn't my church home, but it was a church home that I needed to be, to vent, to do everything. I found the church home there, and I just felt like you just got to get yourself back on track. It's all about you actually going through something in order for it to draw you back in, to draw you back to want to be back in the church, to draw you back to want to be talking back to God, and to be really in tune with God. So I just wanted to add that point because I understand you there. I understand you.
I feel like the sister over there was saying, like, because I grew up in the ministry where I saw a lot of miracles happening. Like I seen people praying. Like I grew up under that type of ministry. So it was just like when you go away and you by yourself and you crying at night and you feel like you can't make it, it's like you are reminded back to those things that you saw when you were younger, and those, you know, that just gives you the strength that you need, and you'll never like fully stray away. You're gonna always come back because you know where your help come from. Yeah. So I just wanted to add that because that helps me A lot of times, because sometimes, everybody feel like, they can't make it sometimes, or they just don't want to. Like, you get up and you don't want to deal with nothing in your day at all. But when you think back to, just the prayers and the miracles and stuff like that, like, that's how you, stay grounded. Like, even if you do back up, like, you stay grounded that way. So.
I don't
Okay,
think,
I have I do, before you get there, I do have a question though, because you all talking about coming back. How do you balance the reality of coming back versus not being able to get back or being brought back? And I'll say this, my son's a musician, and he's a great gospel musician, right? And he was playing with one group, and he calls me up, and the drummer in the group, he they were young, going out, boom, and he got gunned down the Saturday night, right? So he didn't make it back. Or one of the bass players that he played with from time to time, he also got gunned down. He didn't make it back. So how do you weigh this? Do you feel like, to me, and I'm a long way from being old, right? But I remember. I mean, I'm a long way from being young, and I'm not old, but I'm a long way from being young, right? But I remember most of you all being in church all the time. But how do you weigh that? Because it to me, I felt like it appears to me, and you all can help me on this, it appears to me as if you're playing Russian roulette. I may make it back, I may not. It just depends upon what chamber the bullet is in at any given moment. And I think it helped my children to stay in church, because they saw these people. And I didn't think much would affect Amber, but there was one of the kids that she grew up with on the block, and he got gunned down sitting in the car a few blocks over, right? And I knew it affected her, because they played together, they grew up together. So to me, it sounds like that when you make those decisions, you're playing Russian roulette. Help me out here. I'm an old pastor. I'm an old guy right now. But it seems like you're playing Russian roulette, and depending on where that bullet is in the chamber, you're saying, okay, I'll just live with, I may not make it back.
So can I say this for me? I believe there are a combination of things that make your child come back to Christ. Just like Denise was saying, her mother was praying for her. We oftentimes, we get these affirmations we send to each other through email and cell phone. God is not requiring, he's not required to affirm anything other than his word. And when I pray, just like the earth was created through words, when I pray to God, in my prayers, I'm saying what he promised me. And I can remember being in Sunday school, and that was something that teenagers talked about, like, my friend lived in the projects, this happened, and the Sunday school teacher told us the difference between two boys standing on the corner and one getting gunned down and the other one not is one is under the blood. And it is our responsibility as those who have come to Christ to pray for our children and the children that are affiliated with our church, our ministry, and our families, because nothing can penetrate the blood. And if we are in prayer, seeking God, asking him what it is that we need to know about our children, God will reveal it to you. He will tell you what to do. God knows everything. And we have to trust God at his word. God will not fail us. And it may sound so cliche, but it's real. God, he is only required to affirm his word. God promised me something about my child, and I'm expecting him to deliver. Whatever he doing, that's a distraction from the enemy. I am going to pray until I see what God promised me. And that's my job as a parent. And it's our job as a church to do the same thing. God made everybody with a purpose and an intent. When these children come to this church, it is our job to pray for them, to model for them what God wants them to be, to don't live a double life, don't backstab and talk about each other, and ultimately pray for them and keep them under the blood. Because they may not understand. I can remember being a young person, we would come to the altar, God, give me a mind to be saved. I still want to hang out, but just pray for me. I want God to protect me and cover me until he gives me a mind to be saved. So please don't take prayer for granted, because it is the most powerful thing that we have in the kingdom. Prayer.
So I think I'm just different. I feel like there's two different things, two different conversations happening. God is not the problem. God is not the problem in this equation. If we're talking about our kids straying away from God or they're straying away from the church, those can be two totally separate things. People don't have a problem with God. They're not taking, well, some people do, but most of the youth that are not taking issue with God. It's the people inside the church. And that's two totally different conversations that we need to have. People need to be accountable for the things they allow to come out of their mouth. People need to start being, if you're saying that you're Christ-like, then act like it. I'm not expecting people to be perfect, but there has to be some accountability when you step outside yourself. We can't keep going along as per usual, because usual is not working. Usual is not keeping these youth inside the church for them to get closer to God, because God ain't the issue. God is constant. He's not the one sitting up here talking about the kids when they come in here, or seeing a girl whose skirt was too short and then you got Mother Adelaide side-eyeing her. That's not the problem. That ain't the problem. The problem is with the people inside the church. So that's a totally different conversation that we need to have. It's not about, well, pray. Yeah, we can pray all day, but I don't necessarily want her to pray for me because I just saw her what she said 2 minutes ago. She ain't the person I want interceding on my behalf. Get you together, right? So those are two totally different conversations that we're having. And again, like I said, and even the comment that you made, when the Sunday school teacher, right? The blood, one kid was covered and the other one wasn't. That struck me wrong. I'm being honest, that struck me wrong, because here's the thing. A person can still be covered and still gunned down, right? Because you don't know what his plan was. So again, my sister, we was in church, and again, I was seen as the bad one, even though I didn't do nothing, but I was seen as the bad one, but she was still gunned down for no one, and I had to come to grips with that. I had to pray about that, because you don't have to make sense for this to me. That doesn't make sense to me, right? She went to school, she went to Sunday school, she went to church, she didn't go outside, she wore the skirts. I was the one that wore pants. I didn't want to be in church. I hung out with all the boys. I was a tomboy. I was gay this week, so they say, right? Because I hung with the boys, right? But she got gunned down. So, but I'm still here though. And let everybody else tell, I ain't covered, but I'm still here and she not. So that ain't got nothing to do with it. It ain't my job to figure out why he allows certain things to happen. Maybe that was his lesson for me. Maybe he was like, okay, I'm gonna take her so you can get you together. Maybe that was the catapult, right? We don't know what the plans are. And that's the thing, the church really just, if a person comes to this church and you don't know this person, how can I help you? What do you need? You're here for a reason. What brought you here today? Because something been on that person's mind. If they didn't grow up in the church, something was on their mind that made them walk through these doors today. Go have a conversation. What's going on? How you doing? Why you here? Something brought you here. Tell me what that thing is. Sometimes people get so overwhelmed with what they got going on in life, they mean to be here, but outside life is pulling them. Sometimes they stressed out about money. As the church, how can we help? Maybe you need help with a resume. Maybe you need a job. So that way, let me alleviate this stress from you, so that way you can focus on this. The church needs to help and not just preach to me on Sunday. What's keeping me from focusing on God? What's keeping me distracted from coming to the church? What are your issues? Right? Maybe that person, maybe God sent them here to fix the problem that you have in your church. Maybe that girl was raped and she wants to come back to the church. Maybe she can help identify the pedophiles that you have in church. Stop being so judgmental and let's fix the things that's wrong and actually ask people, why don't you want to come back to church? What was your experience? And let them tell you, and let them be honest. And not let's shush things under the rug, because I'm sorry, as a black community and a black family, we always want to say, well, we can pray this away. We don't want to talk about mental health issues. We don't want to talk about the uncle that don't nobody want to let babysit. We don't want to talk about that, but you got to have those real conversations so people can feel safe. People have to feel safe in the church. I don't want to come to the altar and lay my burdens here when somebody gonna go whisper them to her at dinner. Like, how do you want me to allow you to pray for me and help me and intercede on my behalf if I don't feel trustworthy enough to tell you what's really going on with me? And that's a lot of the reason why people are leaving the church. Whether I don't want to share. I don't feel like this is a safe space, right? So can I come and actually talk to you and really tell you how I feel, and this conversation stay between me and you? Can that happen? Right? And then how do we grow from that? How do we build? How do we create programs to heal these areas, and why really young people, like I said, not straying away from God, straying away from the church? Because like I said, I can pray all day, and I'll pray until I can't pray no more. But walk into somebody's church and feel like I can go to one of the elders and say, hey, I'm really struggling with this and I need help with this. I ain't been yet to do that.
So I don't want to cut you off. We hit a lot of key points as far as like judgment and no safe spaces, which we had on the list. I don't know if there was anything else you guys wanted to add to any of those topics. No. But I think another like really big thing was hypocrisy. So I don't know if anybody wants to.
I just want to, in that vein, I just wanted to know, with Pastor Razor being here, maybe somebody can type in the chat box regarding hypocrisy. What is truly the expectation for a church? Is there a biblical definition or standard? Because we live in an imperfect world, right? So do we expect the church to be perfect? What is the Bible? How are we supposed to be set up? And I think that's with anything. You got to know what you're supposed to be doing, how you're supposed to be doing it. And then you won't have as many problems, as many broken and hurt people. A lot of people just set up churches because, you know, they got the money and this is what they feel like they're supposed to do. But what's the blueprint? How are ministries supposed to operate? And then I think we can prevent a lot of these people from falling by the wayside because God already created the blueprint. And if we follow that, I think we'll be successful and we will prevent this hypocrisy and this being judgmental. And I don't know the answer. I'm not a preacher, minister, nothing. I'm just a parishioner. But I come from, what I think was a good body of people. We've had what you talked about, but we just weathered through it. And I have nothing but great things to say because I knew people are imperfect. That wasn't my expectation, let me say that. But I know everybody is different. Somebody may be looking for a perfect church or a 5-star church. Is that a realistic expectation?
Right. Yeah, I think when it comes to hypocrisy, I think it's like, don't shame me when you not as clean, right? There's a way you can address and correct a person without making them feel shameful about their choice, right? There's one thing, like if I come and I say, I'm an alcoholic, right? I'm like, oh my God, you need to get your life together. Don't do that, right? Maybe share your experience and how you came about it. Offer some suggestions on how we can work through this, right? Don't shun me. Don't not talk about. Don't not invite me to things. And you know what I mean? That's you're making me add more guilt, more shame. I'm here because I'm trying to figure it out, right? So I think it's more so. It's not the standard of we expect people in church to be perfect, but it's just like I do expect you to share your burdens. If we're talking, right? I think most people learn and grow a little bit faster when you share your experiences and you all can connect on a deeper level, right? You allow a person to open up more, right? And I think like sometimes in my experiences and people that I've talked with is that people, once they grow, they want to forget about where they came from. You know what I mean? And they don't want you to bring light on that, right? So they're up here now. I'm elevated. That ain't my life. Like, don't do that to me. Like, I want to get there too. Like, help me get there, right? And I think that's where it comes from. And then it's just like, when you do have people who plunder in the church, don't hide it. It's okay. If this is supposed to be a safe space, we should all be able to share in each other's, because what you messed up on may be able to help somebody else. But if you don't want nobody to know about it, and you don't want nobody, and you're trying to hide it because you ashamed because you know what you just did to Sister Allie, now you expect them to do it to you. And so you want to hide that.
So how do we, go ahead, go.
You talked about expectations.
Yeah.
Do we feel like the church is setting too high of expectations, people?
I think
Because
they're
people-
not clear.
That's
So
what I'm getting to.
that's what
Yeah.
I don't think, like, we were required to go to new membership class when I grew up in church, okay? You however many weeks or months or whatever it was, you had to go. You knew what was required to be a member of that church and what the church was going to give you in response. Now, I don't know if they still do that, but that creates clarity. Because if somebody in my family died and nobody from my church come, and y'all told me during new membership class you was gonna support me, I know to hold you accountable.
Exactly.
Because you promised me this. So I think that's key. I know when we take jobs, you get a job description, roles, responsibilities, and duties. You know what you're supposed to come to work and do. And when you don't do it, you can be held accountable. So I think it's important that people know, what is my church supposed to do for me, and what am I supposed to do for my church? Because God tells us what he wants from us. His directions are in the Bible, they're crystal clear, right? But I don't know if it's so clear in the church. I don't know if people know what church is for. Some people don't think it's important. They think they can stay at home. So I think that's the concern, the challenge that pastors and administrators of churches and people need to clearly understand what your purpose is, your vision, your mission, what you're gonna do, and what you expect them to do. Because when you hear Sister Allie talking about Sister Karen, who do we go to?
Mm-hmm. And like, so there was an example, something that at the church I was attending at the time. So we had a associate pastor and his wife. They had some marital issues, some infidelity issues, right? And they made him step down. Now, me as a Christian, I'm sitting there and I'm like, I wasn't sure how I felt about that, right? Their marriage, their business, however they need to work that out, right? Now, I am okay with them, you know, if the church says, okay, hey, you all need to go to marriage counseling, this, that, and the other. Now, if he disagreed to do that, okay, then I understand the demotion. But to immediately demote him, I wasn't sure if I understood what the purpose in that was.
Because he has to be held accountable. You can't be a bad example and stand in front and tell people how they should be or things they shouldn't do, what you're doing. Yeah.
So, but see, my issue with that is this. That's that level of expectation of being perfect. You see what I'm saying? Because he's not Christ. They're going to make mistakes. And my thing is, just because, okay, he admitted his flaws, because we sin every day. Ain't nobody here without sin. So what determines your demotion?
But see, I don't know now. I know with our church, the people that are ministers, and they know that is rules for demotion. So I don't know
Right, that's what I said.
if
I
they
get it.
agree. And if you agree to that, I gotta hold you accountable.
No. I get
You
that
know?
part. That's what I said. I get that there's a rule. There are rules,
Yeah.
but I'm just like, to me, the rule didn't necessarily make sense. And the reason for that being is because, like I said, if there were like some, like I said, like go to counseling, like some things for you to work through it, right? To show people, like, okay, yes, he made a mistake, right? Because he is still human. He is not Jesus Christ himself. So therefore, he is going to make mistakes, whatever those mistakes are, and allow him to work himself back, right? Go to counseling. If him and his wife are doing the work. Now, again, if they said, nope, we're not going to counseling, we not doing this, we not doing that, okay, you're not even trying to help. You're not even trying to become better, right? And so my thing is, and that's that level of, I expect the clergyman to be perfect, and this is why it teaches people to hide their mistakes, because you're going to be punished and ashamed and looked at a certain way, and things are going to be taken away from you. You can still be held accountable without being, in my opinion, shamed in front of the church. Let me show you what making a mistake and growing and working through looks like. That's what that looks like to me. Because again, when I saw that, I was just like, yeah, I'm gonna keep my mistakes to myself.
And he 9 times out of 10, he probably would, him and the pastor or whoever had a discussion, and he knew, and you know you have to, it's not being perfect. When you called, you know it's certain things you shouldn't do. I can't tell, like our pastor say all the time, he wouldn't take financial advice from MC Hammer because you know better. Certain things you just don't do. I can't be a youth leader, I can't be an unwed youth leader, and I'm gonna speak, and come in here 8 months pregnant, and all the kids looking at me, because guess what? They're gonna say, oh, Denise did it, so I can do it. Lead by example, that's all it means.
So who
And
much
his
is
pastor-
given, much is required.
That's it.
No,
And the pastor probably told him, go get counseling, see what you can do, I'll counsel you, and then you can come back. But to
And that's a-
leave him there in front would be a bad example.
See,
and
and-
nobody's looking for perfection, huh? It's just a matter of certain things we just don't, and that's like life. It's certain things you just won't do.
What and see, and that's to me. And like I said, like, until you are in those particular circumstances, until you have been beaten or in a situation, you can't say what you can and what you won't do. Again, I am not Christ. So there were probably several circumstances or situations that allowed him to be vulnerable enough to fall victim, right? And maybe, just maybe, he needed help way before then, but guess where he didn't feel comfortable going to help get help for that? The church.
You said that the church don't have to be 5-star, but I feel like the pastor do, because when I came to this church, I was sitting on the porch every Wednesday night. This is my niece. She went to church. I said, niece, ask Rev so-and-so and so. She said, you come ask him. Say, he'll tell you anything you want to know. So I started coming to church, and I asked Rev questions. He'll tell me questions and then tell me where to find that in the Bible.
Yeah, he's
now
very
that's
smart.
a pastor in my book. That is a pastor.
Yeah.
So ever since then, I've been, in love with this church because everybody in this church is friendly.
Yeah.
And I never been where I didn't go to church, even when I got married. Only reason I didn't go to church because I was working on Sunday. But my husband, I guess he got tired of me catching the bus. He started coming to church with me.
Yeah.
So that's the reason I got my husband to come to church with me. But I'm in a senior building, and they had a dinner in the senior building, and I was late getting there. And I heard everybody talking about, she'll be here in a minute, she'll be here in a minute. So when I got in there, they said, here she come, here she is, she gonna say the grace. I'm like, y'all can't say the grace unless I come here. They said, we want to hear you say it. I'm saying like, so every Wednesday and Friday we have breakfast. And by building manager, she'll say, T, you can say the grace. I said, Diana gonna say it today. She said, I want to hear you say it. I'm like, I can't say, I got to say grace. She said, you say it better than she do, so you say it. So now, every Wednesday and Friday, I have to say the grace. When they have dinner at church, down in the building, I got to say the grace. Mm-hmm. Every time they have something, they calling on me to say the grace.
She had a question.
I told this nice gentleman that I was just gonna keep talking to him instead of talking to y'all. But I'm gonna say this and get up out of here. As far as what me personally, because I think I'm kind of like a line right here, like I have a relationship versus religion, and what I would just expect from the church is just whatever you're holding me accountable for, whatever light you want me to walk in that with me.
Yeah. Talk about it.
Give me that same grace. And I also want us to give the grace to these children because they not walking in the same times I walked in. And I'm 30. But when I was in high school, they dealing with a whole lot of different heavy stuff. Yeah. So it's not the same. What you can't give that same message that you were given. You can't deliver it the same way. You can't have those same expectations from these kids. They're burying more of their friends than I have in a lifetime, loved ones. Yeah. And it's like, we can't keep talking to them, and we can't keep, when I was a kid and when I was in church, it went like this, we ain't there no more. Everything around us is evolving, and structured around Gen Z and the youth, the church needs to too. So in my opinion, I was just telling Jasmine that it was Jennifer, that it was kind of crazy that I ended up here because you guys had a back to school drive here thing here last August, yeah, right? And it was my oldest baby is 9, and so we were out there, and she was just playing, and it was something that I hadn't seen in a while, and that didn't even affect me to how different times are because I'm not even used to seeing these kids playing. These kids can't even play the same. So if they can't play the same, they can't go to school the same, they can't live the same, they can't be shamed the same because where it was a time is that joke that was said, it only hit family ears, now it's hitting social media, now it's viral, now it's everywhere. So if they can't do none of this stuff the same, how can they church the same? My baby was like, wait, are we at a church? And I was like, yeah, baby, how you know? She was just having a biblical conversation with another child her age. And she was coming back telling me things. And I came here because it said it was a back to school drive. So now my baby on the way home telling me the word, and I got to listen from a 9-year-old and look up online what she even talking about. And dang on it, she was right. But anyway, it just has to be executed differently because I promise you, if you listen to the kids and if you listen to the youth, they 15 ain't your 15. They 13 ain't your 13. They 9, it ain't our 9. So that's all I wanted to say.
I do want to be mindful of the time. I don't know if Pastor want to give us the okay to keep going because we having a good little discussion up here. Okay, he said to keep going. We gonna do that. Were there any other questions as far as that?
I did have something I want to add. Is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think it's important that you find the church is right for you and where you are in life. When we have children, we talked about children, it's not just us we're thinking about. So I think it's important that you learn about the church that you want to attend and figure out what is best for you and your family. Just like with a school, I knew what my son needed and I looked for something that would cater to his needs. So I think ministries are different. Some ministries cater more to youth or families, so you have to do the work. You know, God not just gonna crack the sky and do everything for us. We gotta put some work into what it is that we want and figure out what works for our family. And also hold yourself accountable. Don't just be a bench member. Know what's required of you. Don't go into anything blind. And make sure you consult God. God not gonna lead you wrong. He's not going to lead you wrong. Now, if you go there because you say that's your church and you didn't consult God, well, you got to deal with whatever because you went on your own. But I would encourage you to consult God with whatever choice you make about joining the church or ministry.
Pastor had asked a question about when young adults stray, and then we go out into the world, and then we sort of like playing Russian roulette, and we truly are, because I almost didn't make it back personally. That's just personally. I didn't, because I knew, because my grandma kept me in church when I was little, whether I went to sleep or whatever. I used to go to sleep every week, but I was there. And then when you get out in the world, you are playing Russian roulette because it's so much happening out in the world. It's nothing like when you could just be free and just open. No, it is Russian roulette, and you don't make it back because you get depressed. A lot of our young adults get sad by stuff that has happened, stuff that has been said to us. We get depressed. I know a young lady just went to the gun range, shooting, and just shot herself in the head on camera, killed herself. My friend's daughter, just 22. She said she was sad. It was too much. Life at 22. You know, so you just never, and you playing Russian roulette, you never know if you're going to make it back. Like I said, our kids are out in the world. Hopefully we pray and the good Lord give them, cover them, and they come back instead of being pushed in. And I meant that because it's scary out there in the world. We having fun and we living our best life, as everybody say, out there in the street in the world, and the world is tossing us, the devil's tossing us back and forth. And we don't see it because we having fun. We the life of the party. You know what I'm saying? We the one that the social life, we the one that bring all the drinks, we the party. I give a party, I have 1,000 people at my house. You know what I'm saying? People can't even come in. Am I lying? I have a party, I got a house full of people. You invite people to church, they're not gonna come. And then the young people are playing Russian roulette. They dropping like flies out here, and they don't even see it because they're too blinded. The devil got them. They think they're having the time of their life and don't even know he's setting them up for a downfall. You know what I'm saying? And some of them not gonna make it back. Is it Russian roulette we playing with once we want? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. We can step, our kids, sad to say, they be in it so deep they don't see. Because they the party, they the stunner. They selling all the drugs, they drinking, they partying, they buying the bar out. You know what I'm saying? And that's the life we living in, because guess what? Social media and so many things is telling them it's the right thing to do. So they gonna go out and buy the bar out. They gonna hustle just because it's fast money and it feel good to them. So they're not thinking like, I'm gonna get, or they say in their head, I'm gonna get this money, then I'm gonna get out the game. That's not how it works. Yeah. The game don't love, the streets don't love nobody. And trust me, I know. Been there, done it. I'm so glad I'm sitting here today. When I say I thank my mama for real, I really do. You know what I'm saying? I done been shot. I done been this. I done been that. I done been shot. I'm just standing in my trunk out in the world. They start shooting. Guess who had to jump in their trunk? Let me get my silly self to church. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So yes, Pastor, it is Russian roulette. We playing games out here. We playing games. The devil is for real. Yeah. We playing games. Yeah. We think it's all cute until it ain't cute no more. We think it's fun until it's not no more. So we out here in these streets playing, and he for real. He for real. He gonna take us out. While you out there in your mess and you don't realize it because we're young. We drunk and having fun, so we don't realize. You know?
Can I ask you a question? When you said, you know, it was lit, I just feel like the church is lit. Like people should want to come where we are. We are connected to the creator of the universe.
They can't see it.
But
they
blind.
But it's because God is supposed to shine through me. So it's something, like you said, God is perfect. Mm-hmm. We are doing something wrong. Because we are supposed, when Amber, the last time I was here, Amber stood here and said, it's about to be lit. And I said, call me, because I want to come. Because that's what's going to draw people, not religion. People want to have a good time, but also feel good about doing it. I don't feel any remorse, any guilt. Right. I had a good time. It was positive. It was edifying. Nobody was talking about anybody. It was a great time. I want to be a part of that. And if we can realistically show that to the world, it won't be enough seats in here. Because that's what they looking for. They paying for a good time. And people to call their friends. But if we really show ourselves sisterly and brotherly, and we having a good time, and we ain't broke, busted, disgusted, and sick, people will come to where we, because like you said, your friends want to know, well, what are you doing? You're blessed.
A lot of people see it, but a lot of people don't believe it. Because a lot of people, a lot of people that see me now won't believe I'm the same Niecy that used to be. They don't know I'm Evangelist Reese now, but they always see Niecy, so they can't get past that part, and that's fine, but I tell my story to anybody that want to hear it. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of times we get to a point where people be like, oh, I'm Evangelist Reese, so I got to be perfect. No, I'm this, or they forget. You forget that you was out there in the world doing God knows what and everything with who knows who. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of people tend to forget, and a lot of young ladies will look and be like, well, she this, she that. No, I'm not. All you got to do is talk to me. I'll talk to anybody. I'll tell anybody anything you want to know. Because guess what? I've been there, done that, said it, did it, and some more. You understand? So I don't have, and a lot of times people like my age, or we forget. Yeah. You came from somewhere. I didn't see that. Even though my grandma brought me to church, I didn't see church. I was just going because I had to go. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know that. So when I came to church and see the young ladies and they embrace me and whatever, no judgment's on. You feel me? You come out the street, I'm coming and I'm doing this, and y'all don't, like, it's not that they don't care, but they don't care where I came from. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of people don't understand that. A lot of young ladies scared to get judged, and a lot of them do, because it depends on where you're going. Yeah. A lot of first ladies say they first ladies, but they really not. They don't carry themselves as young ladies. They carry the title because they want the new purse, they want the car, they just want to have the title, but they don't come from the heart. Yeah. So a lot of young ladies get pushed away because she thinks she better than everybody. You understand what I'm saying? So if you don't see it, they can't see past it, because some of the churches aren't right. And I get what you're saying, like they drove you away with their mess. And everybody ain't real. A lot of churches aren't real. They just buildings. They just buildings, and ain't no foundation, ain't no love, ain't no God, ain't no nothing. And yes, it is hard for a young lady to come off the street. She just got through, his kids in here. She just got through doing whatever, making some money out on the street, and then she come into church. and everybody judging her because she don't have the proper clothes.
Yeah.
She don't have the right. She might be still have drugs because guess what? You got to be high to be out there. You got to be drunk to be out there. You ain't just out in the world doing everything under the sun in a sober mind. I can guarantee you that.
Yeah,
So when she coming in high, she don't want nobody to tell her like, oh, she still high. She smell like she drunk or she smell like crack. Don't nobody want to hear that.
No.
Because guess what? You're going to make her more depressed.
And she already know.
She already know. That's why she here.
know.
You know what I'm saying? And a lot of times we forget where we come from. I said all that to say, yes, we forget where we come from. And yes, we playing Russian roulette out in that street. Don't be halfway into nothing because your halfway going to get you took right on up out of here.
So I'm gonna say I enjoy Pastor Razor. Me and Pastor Razor, we go back and forth on Facebook a lot about a lot of different things. But I appreciate that though, right? Because I look at him like he has a wealth of knowledge, but he is not above himself.
Oh, no. Yeah.
And so, even though I still haven't made it to his church, but the fact that he is able to have that conversation, that thought though is in the back of my head, like, all right, I'm gonna make it, right? But at the same time, when he asked the question about the Russian roulette, and like, to me, what I heard was, that tells me I'm more comfortable with playing Russian roulette with my life than sitting in this church. That's what the answer is. That is why people are choosing to do that. Because,
How do we fix that?
right, so, right, and how we fix that. Right, is it honestly, right, honestly, I will say, it's exactly what you're doing. I haven't been to your church, so I can't tell you what your church itself is doing, but if you're the head and if you're doing this, I can only assume that your church will follow, right? Wherever the head goes, the neck follows. So to me, the way what you're doing and having these conversations and the fact that you are open-minded enough to understand that there is a disconnect, that I do need to fix this, I do want to know, right? Just being open is where you start. Like I said, like I haven't found my church yet, but even having this conversation makes me want to come here and let me see if this could be it. I don't know, maybe it is, maybe it's not, but it still makes me feel comfortable enough to be like, all right, well, let me go check this out and let me see if this is it, right? Maybe this is how this happened. Because I haven't seen Pastor Razor in I don't know how many years. But we have these conversations and maybe this is God's way of like, all right, here you go, right? Because he hit me last minute like, hey, you want to? I'm like, all right, cool. First time I've been in a church in, I'll say probably 3 years, if not more. First time I've been in a church. And so it's literally just having open conversation, not being above where somebody else is, because you're no different than somebody else. Just because you may have been saved 2 years longer than me, still don't make you no better, and you ain't no closer than backsliding than I am. Right. And so just being, again, just having that open dialogue and having that open conversation and not being and telling everybody you can pray everything away. Yes, you can pray, but God also, he made doctors and therapists. Go see one. Yeah. Right? Like, sometimes that old school way of thinking you could just pray everything away. No, God said you can pray, but go see a doctor, right? While you doing that, go see a therapist while you're doing that, right? And so just having open dialogue and sharing your path, sharing your journey, and being genuine and authentic and understanding when people walk through this door, you don't know what they just left and what they just went through to bring him there. And if you are committed to saying you want to get the youth back into the church, that's how you do it. Like you really do have to stop judging these young people and really meet them where they are. And that's not just, well, as soon as you see a new person, well, the doors of the church are open. No, go have a conversation first.
So if I could jump in, I think a lot of that just takes a lot of willingness to learn. Mm-hmm. And so people come to church, they want to learn, but at the same time, if we're going to meet them halfway, we have to do some learning of our own. That's good. We can talk about mental health, and the church can learn mental health, but I think the pastor, to some extent, has to know a lot of that stuff too, because if you're preaching that to us, you have to be knowledgeable of it. We can't meet somebody halfway if we don't know how to communicate with them, if we don't know the right things to say to them. You might say something to trigger them, not on purpose, but you just could because you don't know the right way to communicate with them.
And I mean, honestly, and I think it kind of goes back to what she said, like outreach programs. Like there are tons of Black professional therapists that would love to just come in and have a session. And you know what I mean? Just offer, you know what I mean? Just minimal, just 30-minute conversations and just expose us to things. Because there's so many things as like the Black community, like we just like, I don't want to go talk to nobody, right? Like, no, it's okay. It will help, right? I mean, just like I said, like different just social programs and just open this up. Because like some people, it's like they're in church, but church ain't the only thing they need.
Right.
You know what I mean? They got so much scars that they need to deal with. That, you know, they might come today, but they ain't gonna be saved tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right? So you gotta figure out what's keeping them from coming back, right? Like, okay, until we can get you into a therapy session, what can we do? What conversation? Let's talk, right? Because sometimes they just need somebody to talk to and listen and not tell them, well, you shouldn't have did that. Well, I wouldn't have done that. Don't do that, right? So I think, honestly, it's just open communication, some social programs, and just having a genuine conversation. Like I said, just figure out what it is they need. Everybody's need is not gonna be the same.
Right.
It's not. And so you treat people like an individual and stop trying to cure everybody with the same blanket.
Yes, I agree. And I want to answer your question real quick, Pastor Razor. I think the squeaky wheels are the ones that get the attention. Most of the people who are broken and bad, those are the ones that we really cater to. But that wasn't my story. I just didn't want nobody to tell me what to do. And I wanted to be grown. So don't forget those people too, because they're out there and they're not broken. They know the right way to go and they just want to not do what they were taught to do. Yeah, they rebellion. Thank you. That was me. So don't forget those people is what I'm saying, because it's a myriad of people, of personalities out there that we have to reach. Everybody is not broken. Everybody wasn't molested or hurt. Some people just want to be rebellious. I don't want to do it. And don't forget those people too, because they look like me.
I mean, and so, but okay, so to speak to that though, right? So if you know better and you're just choosing not to, right? Then the only, and I don't know your story, right? So I'm not going to try to say, you know what I mean? But only thing I can think of would just be continuously praying for those, right? Because it's not a, well, she left because she got pushed out. She left because I'm choosing not to be out here, right? Not to be there right now, right? So in those instances, you know, you just pray for those people.
And don't forget to pray for me, y'all.
You know what I mean? Just pray for them to come back home, right? I mean, but like for everything else, it's just like the people that just like have a reason on a specific reason why they don't want to be there, right? And then just like how we can hold the husband and wife accountable for their infidelity as a pastor, things like that. What are we doing about the inappropriate behavior for the clergy, for the men that are parishioners who are not? You know what I mean? In a pastor role or whatever. Like, where's the accountability for that? Where, when we hear when that 15-year-old girl walk by, ain't nobody gonna check that. Right. We gonna let that happen? Ain't nobody gonna say nothing? That's okay? You see what I'm saying? But she heard it. You see what I'm saying? So where's the accountability for that? Where is the accountability for the women gossiping? Like, what elder mother is gonna say, hey, sweetheart, we don't do that here?
Right.
When is that going to happen? Right? Like, you have to hold everybody accountable. It just don't just start with the pastors when everybody can see it. No, hold everybody accountable so that way they know, like, I can't behave this way. Right. This is not Christ-like.
Expectation.
Exactly. It's just, we have to learn how to hold each other accountable. And it's not just the pastor. It's, I'm sitting next to her. I heard what you just said, sweetheart. That's not Christ-like. Let's not do that. It's something just that simple. Yeah. So when you start moving like this, right, your light and your energy will begin to shine, and God will bless your church itself, because this is a place where he needs people to come to. So therefore, when people start acting like that, I feel like you'll be able to attract more people.
I want to swing, thank you for that. Before we take your question, I'm so sorry. I just want to swing the conversation over this way. Ladies, if you have anything to add?
I'm just listening because what they saying, they making valid points. But when she was saying that it's therapists and all that stuff like that, people to talk to, like, I feel like that's very true. But as Black people, we grew up in our household, don't tell nobody nothing. It stay in this house or whatever. Or I feel like that's where a lot of the problem has come from. And we don't know how to talk to someone. We don't know how to show our emotions, express how we really feel or whatnot, and we bottle it up inside to the point where we by ourselves and we shut everybody out. And I feel like in order to to get to the youth and stuff like that, pull a kid to the side. Hey, how you doing? How you been doing in school? How your friends doing? Like, just like try to like get deeper.
Get in their business.
Get interest, show the love to them. Because believe it or not, when you done talking to them and they walk away, they're not gonna forget that.
Yeah.
They're gonna take that back home and they're gonna remember, oh, I love that lady. She showed me this type of, and they're gonna wanna come back. They're gonna keep wanting to come back, but you can't be one-sided especially when you're dealing with youth, because like my friend said before she left, like they are dealing with totally different things now or whatnot. And it's just like they way smarter too. Like they peep a lot. Like they pick up on stuff so quick, so it's just like 1 second, oh, okay, nope, never talking to you again, never come back here again, next. Like, they real attentive too. Like, so you just gotta be mindful of that when you dealing with the youth. In my opinion, that's just how I think about it. Not to offend nobody, but that's just how I feel.
I think as we tell people to seek therapy, we have to provide those resources.
Yeah.
You can't just say you should go see a therapist.
Yeah.
I don't know where to start. I don't know where to look. Like, and the church can't. I mean, we want to think they can, but the church can't do it all. Like you said, you have to meet people where they are. Like, if this whole side of the room need therapy and this whole side of the room need this whole side of the room, you just don't. You don't have the time and the capacity to take care of everybody. Sometimes you do have to like extend those resources to other people. But yeah, I think the church can do a better job at like making sure that if we can't do it, there is another place you can go. There is somebody else to talk to. And it's not like we're pushing them off. We don't have to push them off to somebody, but just letting them know, like, if you feel like you're not getting what you need from us, this is where you can go.
But can I say something? With God, there is no lack, so the church can do it all. If he ordained us to be here to do this, he'll provide it. He knows the people God is so smart. He knows everybody that's going to walk through these doors, and he's already made a way. It's about, do we believe it? Do we believe that we can't do it, or do we believe we can? God is bigger than anything that we can imagine. He already knows what I need next year before I do. So if we operate the way that he instructs us to and seek him, he will provide. The Bible tells us he will provide all of our needs. So if I need a therapist, he's going to make sure I get one. God is not, he wouldn't dangle something in front of me and not let me get it. So we have to believe that God will provide it. We can't do it. Our trust has to be in God.
And to that point, it's one of those situations where, again, it could be somebody that's sitting in your congregation who might just be a therapist.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And all you have to do is put the call out there, like, hey, this is what we're looking for. Or it may not even be somebody in your congregation, but it could be somebody in your congregation that knows somebody.
Yeah.
And it's just as simple as putting the plan together and putting a call to it, right? And then also, to piggyback off what she said, like, again, when you talking to youth, you can't just always be the hammer that's coming down on their head. Like, who wants to hear this? Like, they got rules left and right. They constantly being told what they ain't do right, what they ain't did. And again, you not knowing what somebody's background is. You don't know if their mama be cussing them out on a daily. Last thing they need to do is come to church and then somebody else is telling them where they messed up at. Not saying you shouldn't hold them accountable for when they fall short, but at the same time, celebrate them too when they do right. And that's not even just in church. That's with your kids at home. Like, nobody wants to always feel like they're not doing something right. Like, that gets old, it gets boring, and it goes one ear and out the other, and then you realize why you can't reach your kid, and your kid don't listen to you no more. Because all they hear is negativity. All they hear is negativity. So it's just like she said, talk to your kids. They listening, but also, when you correcting them, tell them when they did right. Like when your pastor said about your grades. Like, if you know what a child is capable of, if you speak in life into that child, And then cool, you praise them when they do good. I remember being called up at the front of the church when I got my report card because I got on the honor roll and this, that, and other, and I got a gift card. That's great. And then, but then when that same adult had to come to me to correct me, I didn't mind the correction because I understood where it was coming from. But if all you're getting is reprimand, that doesn't feel like you care. That just feels like you constantly judging and I'm not enough. And so you have to find a balance when talking with kids and giving them that positive reinforcement, as well as correcting them and showing them the path in which way in the way they should go.
Can I say something?
Oh, yeah. Gosh, you had a question. Sorry.
It's okay. Well, honestly, my daughter, she brought up the part of what I was going to say is, first of all, you got to show that love. Because, like you say, you don't know when a person, and we're saying young adults, youth, children, whomever, it's just like a lost soul walking into the house of God. We don't know how broke, we don't know what, we don't know their story. We just know that this is a soul, and when you come in here, we got open arms because you come into Christ. You done came up and you want to give, you ain't perfect when you get there. But when you get to a point where, I love to hear Evangelist Nisi, I love to hear her, what she's saying, because she has a true testimony that she can help a soul that come in here. You know, just her testimony. All thing she has to do is give her part of it. And I think that especially even with the young people, the young lady left here, I used to work in a school. I worked with kids. For some reason, they draw to me. I don't know, because I had so many. I don't know. I think it's because I listened. Yeah. I took the time to listen, and I didn't judge. I would tell my daughter all the time, all the things that would go wrong. They don't know your story. You don't know. They don't know your life. Yes, you know God. Yes, you fallen. Yes, we make mistakes. Yes, we leave the church. I remember being in a backsliding condition. I can speak about it because I've been there. And yes, playing Russian roulette. Because one thing I tell you, I was on guard, fear, because I knew God. I wasn't in the street. I wasn't doing none of that. I just sat. I wasn't going to church. You know why? I saw some mess. That don't make it right to leave out of a church. Leave from under a covering. That's what I should say. Leaving up because the church is really in you. It's here. It's right here. And so as young people, I try to encourage young people the best I know how. My kids told me, we thought you would save your whole life. This is when they start becoming teenagers. Oh no, I had to break it down to them. I gave them the whole history. Yes, I have had falls in my life. I had to grow up and I had to learn some things. I had a lot of hurts, a lot of disappointments, but I'm never gonna forget where I came from. That's what I have to always remember. And then when they fall down, I'm right there. You know, I'm not agreeing with everything you're doing, but I'm patting you and rubbing, just like God do us. Yeah. Come on now. Yeah. You can do something wrong. He may not beat you down. He gonna fan you while he whipping you though. You gonna get a little fan every now and then. But he right there with you. God is still with you. When you ever have a relationship with God, he does not leave you. We leave him. He never leaves us. And so if we could just get our young people, our young adults, and I'm saying this from right now, I guess we should be saying 12 and 13-year-olds, because a lot of them are raising themselves. They don't have grandma and mom and them making them go to church and auntie them. They don't have that. So how do we get them and draw them in and keep them here? I can think of some ways, and it ain't all about mental health, even though we need mental health, because ain't none of us been through what we've all been through thus now. Yeah. So these kids, our minds are everywhere. We don't even know the damage to a lot of them yet, or what has happened to ourselves. But we have to show love. We have to open these doors up and show love. If I can't help you because you need some help with your business or you having a breakdown, I'm gonna send you over there to Sister Nisi. You know what I'm saying? If I know who the person is that I know that they can get some help from, they're going to pat them and take them through it. That's what we need to do in the church. The church, to me, a lot of them have a program Just like we going back to, somebody was saying about how they had to take classes before they got into church. Yeah, maybe some churches. I don't never in my life remember that. But I'm sure they probably do. But my pastor told me I'd never forget. I said, because I'm an observer. I sit back and watch everything. I've watched everything. I've always been that way from a kid. And I said, well, I ain't no evangelist, and I ain't know this. Some of us were chosen in our parents' wombs. Like she said, 4 years old. Some babies are saved from babes. We don't know. You don't know. They may be the run of the house. They out in the street doing everything under the sun. That don't make them not one of God's children. It don't make them that gifted child. That God probably, your mama got a word that your baby gonna be sus, and you looking at them saying, where? But all I'm saying is, I have a burden for young people because I've seen a lot of young people shunned away from the church. You know, and really a lot of people with titles have shunned them away. And it's a horrible place for young people to be today. Because we're losing our babies.
I got a quick question for the masses. It's really a rhetorical question for people to think about. Are you all waiting for people to come to the church, or is the church going out to the people? Just curious, because we got all of these kids out here and all of them not gonna make it to the church for you to save them. So what are we doing to actually bring the kids to the church? And it doesn't have to be like an organized thing, but when you're walking through the streets every day and you're reaching and you're talking to these kids that you come to interact with, it's the conversation, hey, you should come to my church. Are you trying to build with this kid and build a relationship so that way that child now trusts you, and then you can extend that invitation, like, won't you come to church with me? Is that happening?
And can I piggyback real quick? I think, like you talked about a passion for youth, God has graced us to all do something. And it's imperative that pastors choose youth leaders that have been graced to work with youth. Not just somebody who's zealous and just said, oh, I'll do it. You have to ensure that anointing needs to rest in their lives. They have to be patient, willing to listen, have some wisdom and insight to be able to impart into young people. So don't just put anybody over your youth department because they're volunteering. You need to ensure that God has graced them to do that, because then they'll do what you just said. They won't wait for the youth to come here. They'll do like Pastor Razor does, and in the summertime, he'll put a tent up because he wants you to be able to hear the church and come and see we're available. He'll offer you a computer class so you can get a job. So those type of things are very important when pastors are looking for people to be in charge of their youth. Ensure that God has graced them to do that.
So we are ending nearing the end of our time. Did anybody have any? Okay, we got a comment in the back. All right.
Real quick, I won't keep you long. I was thinking about, like, when you were saying, when I was little, I didn't grow up in church either, but it was a lady in the block, old elderly lady that sold candy, and she would open up her house for Bible study in the afternoon. She'd show us a movie, tell us about Jesus, and if you stay there, you can eat the candy for free. So we all went and we ate her candy. But she was a wise woman because she gave us the candy first. And so, you know, many of them left after they ate the candy. But some of us that God had his hands on was convicted and couldn't leave. I could never eat a candy and leave. So I stretch it out and watch a movie, you know. And then next time I take somebody else with me so they can watch the movie too. Don't leave. But also, I was that one that saw everything, like Vicki was saying. He heard everything in the church. I was that one that saw the pastor say, well, we gonna wear robes, the choir gonna wear robes because Sister so-and-so is pregnant and we don't want the people to see that. I heard that, and it's like, God, why did I hear that? Or I heard them say, we're gonna take up $100 offering, and the pastor passed out $100 bills to his family so they can start first so the other people can follow. You know, and I began to see all this stuff. And then hear them over in the corner talking about the different ones, the ones that they was laughing at old baby and do to church. You know, that's discouraging, especially when you're a baby saint. And, you know, and I used to read the Bible and I was like, I constantly told God, you know, pluck my eyes out So I want to go to heaven, and if I have to go there blind, you know, because I don't want to see all this. I saw a lot. Like Vicki was saying, you heard a lot, you saw a lot. Even when I was going to church and I couldn't afford stockings, the mothers would slap me on the legs and say, baby, you know you're supposed to be wearing nylons, you know. But didn't know I didn't have the money for stockings. Didn't ask me why I didn't have any on. So that was discouraging. It's like, you know, then I'll stay home. But then instead of staying home, then I found something longer where they couldn't see it, and I avoided them. And also to add with Vicki, what she's saying, I understand too, you know, and a lot of people, I know you probably bug you when you hear that because, you know, your sister was prayed for, you know. My son died with blessed oil in his shoes and his hat. I used to pray, fast and pray and rub blessed oil over my body and roll around in their bed. You know what I'm saying? Because I wanted them to be saved. But everybody came to me with all kind of advice, but one person, his godmother, said something that made more sense than anybody. And she said, God took the one that was ready. So, you know, everybody wondered, why was you wasn't ready? She was. And I looked at the crowd after that. The crowd that the guys that he hang with, they got really scared because that was the one that sang in the choir. That was the one that went with me when I was passing out tracts and on the trains and going with the homeless and stuff. That's the one that was with me. They didn't understand how it happened to them, so it made them scared. So then they got their life together. They got a job. They went to school. They didn't come back to the city. You know, they didn't hang with that crowd anymore. You know, they learned something. So, I mean, I get it. And I can imagine what you went through because I, too, had to deal with a 15-year-old, you know, after losing a brother. So that's all, you know, just be encouraged. You know, God wants you. He got something for you to do. Those that see everything and hear that conversation, people don't, that is the worst thing that people can do is talk about the church. Have the church for lunch when they go home with their family and talk about everybody in the church around their children. Children can't help but to, you know, they go around you can't understand why they speaking to you yesterday and they rolling their eyes at you tomorrow, you know, the next week or whatever, because they heard too much. You don't, you know, talk that stuff around their kids. You have to be careful. You know, that's why it's good. And that's why I always, with my kids, I said, I didn't teach them. Like I was taught, do as I say, do not what I do. That's what I was taught. But with my children, I say, you do as I do and you do as I say do. Because God told me that I had the responsibility. That was my responsibility. You know, that is my job. My two children was my job. And I had to see to it that they get to him and see him in peace and to live and work for him. That was my job. And I took my job serious. So whatever I did, you know, I ain't saying I was perfect. Yeah, I did pick up smoking again, but I hung out the bathroom window so they wouldn't smell it. You know what I'm saying? I didn't do things where they can see it and say, well, yo, things is getting hard. So then that's when you go back in the world and pick up a few things, you know, when I'm stressed out, you know. But then I knew I had to get it together, you know, and every time I do it, I was like, God, forgive me. And then the word came to me that he said, when your calamity come upon you, I'm going to mock you. And then after a while, when I was smoking, came back and repented, and he said, I heard my own voice come back and say, oh, God, forgive me. You know, that scared me, you know. But as you were saying, you know, we just got to be an example. And, you know, back in when we first started this church, I had a book of resources. That's what we need today. We need resources, you know, because people need things. You know, like I have a friend now trying to find some place for her mentally ill daughter, you know, and if the church had more resources, you know, available, then we can help more people. That's all I got to say.
Thank you guys for sharing. Thank you, everybody. Thank you all for being up here. I know, you know, a couple of us were very nervous. I think we did a good job. You know, we're not gonna keep you for another 3 hours like your old school pastor used to do. So I don't know if Terrence, you have some closing words or somebody wants to close us out.
All right. I just thank you all. You all did a great job. Great job. And, I really appreciate the honesty. And I mean, I think I know all of you all. I've known Karen the longest, then Victoria next, and then Michaela, and then Clarice, and then Jennifer. Jennifer, I'm just kind of grabbing her right now the last couple of years, but that's okay. I got her now, right? But no, really, seriously, because these issues have to be addressed, right? I get tired of people saying, about how this church is mushrooming over here. And really what's happening, and I mention this all the time, right? Pew Research and every research organization states that church attendance is on the decline. I mean, it's across the board, right? So when you see churches that are expanding, it's not growing the body of Christ. They have programs to draw people from other churches. And then when the next big thing comes, they go from that church to that church. And they go, and it doesn't help anybody, because our job and our goal is to go out and grab the unchurched, right? The ones that don't know about the Lord. And I've always felt we're too judgmental, and a lot of people, they had a hard time believing some of the things that I had to put up with in certain situations, because I didn't believe in being judgmental. And I would find myself in church places, and there was a lot of times that I butted heads, and we had a lot of things, right? But we've got to address these questions, and we've got to provide solutions if we want to bring people back to the house of the Lord. And that's what the goal is, right? But the house of the Lord, I'm just going to be totally honest with you. The church that's going to do that is going to look drastically different from what we know the church today. And it's going to look totally different, and that's just the bottom line. It's going to look totally different. And so I thank each and every one of you all for you could have been in a lot of different other places, for taking your time and just sharing with us on this panel. I don't have anything to say. I really didn't want to say anything. I'm glad I can still stand after y'all beat us poor pastors up. After y'all beat us poor pastors up tonight. But you know what? Me and Pastor Sarden had a program that we started. We was doing real well before the pandemic. Then pandemic we stopped. I had some other things come up because I was running the training center. But we had a program called Pastors Talking the Issues. And the whole idea was to address things like this. And we started Voices Rising Up so that we could have those conversations outside of the framework of the church, right? Because we didn't want it all to be holy God, blah, 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 blah. We wanted to deal with the real issues. So it wasn't on my church's page, and it wasn't on his church's page. We created a community forum, and we called it Voices Rising Up. And I think we're going to bring that back so that we can address the issues, because I'm tired of waking up to death. People are just being, and it's not just Chicago. My wife and I went to Arkansas, and it's only like 2,000 people in the town. They got gangs. I said, everybody in this town should be one gang fighting the next town.
Right.
But they got gangs. Woke up in the middle of the night, you hear shots. All right. Someone walks into, they don't have enough money to have a bar. So the local car place where they change flats on Friday, they put that over to the side, and that becomes their juke joint. Somebody shot up the juke joint, killed 3 people, and then kept going. The juke joint. So it's not just an issue in Chicago. It's an issue everywhere. And we have to address those questions. We have to answer those questions, right? Okay? So I thank you all for coming. I know Jeremiah. I don't know who the Regala is. My son set him up, and he hasn't come, but Jeremiah texted and said he's on his way. but we're not going to wait for him, right? He ain't that funny. He watching me too, and he know that I'm gonna hear about that too. He say he's on his way, but he ain't that funny, right? Not funny enough for me to wait after that. You all did a great job. Thank you, Tori. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Clarice. Clarice is coming out of her shell, girl. I'm gonna have you preaching in a little while. Thank you. Thank you, Jennifer, and thank you, Michaela. Yeah, oh, she's coming out of her shell. We're going to give you some license, girl. Yeah. But thank you all. Thank you, and thank everyone that came on this rainy night to be a part of this, okay? Okay, God bless you all.
Thank you.
We gonna have you preaching next.
Oh, do we turn these off?